Okay, we're back on now. Why is that down there? There we go. Okay, sorry about that, you guys, for the recording. I had already said a few things and then I forgot I was going to record it. So anyway, in this webinar, you will learn the science behind sleep patterns. What are some of the causes of sleep disruption? The consequences of inadequate sleep, which I feel are very scary, something that we really need to take seriously rather than just, it's much more than just feeling tired. So I'll go into a little bit more depth about that. But, and then also some natural sleep solutions, obviously, to give you to help you hopefully get a better, night's rest. It might not happen, the first night, but it's something that you can kind of progress towards, especially if you have very severe sleep disruption or inadequate sleep. Okay, so a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie Cootie. I'm a pharmacist, and I'm also, my main business now is the natural health business. I'm also a business coach for those that are on my team. I'm a platinum leader within doTERRA Essential Oils, and I'm the co-founder of A Natural Shift, which is something I started with my sister recently, and it's sort of our natural health lifestyle sort of brand. It encompasses a lot more than just essential oils, doTERRA. So I'm excited about that. But I'm co-founder of that, and then I'm a Christian first and foremost, but I'm also a wife and a mama of 2 little kids. So I know what it can feel like to have sleep deprivation when you have a little kid. So that's definitely not too far out of my realm. Definitely remember how that feels. Okay, so before we get started, please know that I'm not a medical doctor. I am a pharmacist, which is a doctoral degree, but I'm not a medical doctor. And so anything that we discuss here, you would want to talk to your physician about and just run it by them, because I don't know what all, your health encompasses, and they know much more about that. So anything, feel free to run it by them first. As a natural health educator, I teach others how to enable their body to heal itself. So nothing I'm going to talk about is, just a cure for anything. It's really just giving your body the right tools so that it is allowed to heal itself. That's all this is really listening to our bodies and trying to work with them rather than against them. The things that we will discuss in this, really, most of them I have used personally, most all of them. So if I haven't, I'll say, my friend told me this, Sally told me this worked well, or I read this here. I'm never going to say something that I haven't used personally and have personal testimony to. And lastly, I value modern medicine. I've learned a lot about it in the time that I have went to school to be a pharmacist and continue to learn about it. And I really do value it in its place. If I were ever to need it, I would be very glad that it was there. But I feel like, I like to turn to natural things first and then use modern medicine as needed, not necessarily the other way around. So I always like to use natural things first just to see if I can, work with my body more. Okay, so jumping right into the subject tonight. So why does it really matter? I think a lot of people just push this subject sort of off on the back burner because, they think they can just deal with being tired, or they think they just don't have enough time to really pay more attention to this. And really, if you have spent years in not getting enough rest, or intermittent sleep, really sleep disruption, which is almost just as bad for your body does get used to that. And your body is actually an amazing thing. No matter what we put in it or how we treat it, usually it adapts to that, and we can survive from that. And I think a lot of people just kind of just go with whatever kind of gets them by because it's easier sometimes. But really, we should listen to our body. We should treat it better than we do lots of times. So, as you see, 60% don't get a good night's rest. This is something that a lot of people either, some people, their genes play a role in this. So some people just by, their inheritance don't sleep as well, but others just kind of, they don't treat their body well during the day, and that really plays a huge factor at night. So whatever the cause may be, 60% on average, I don't know how they came up with that number, but a lot of people don't get a good rest at night. So that's really why it does matter. And just looking a little bit more at this subject. it's really also, sleep is such an integral part of maintaining overall wellness. And, in the business that I'm in, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at overall wellness, and how it affects our immunity, our hormones, our weight. In the next slide, I think we're going to talk about, all the things that happen when we sleep. And it's really astounding to think about it, and what can really be, very largely affected if we don't get the right amount of sleep. Just think about your hormones and how delicate of a balance those have to be to serve you correctly in the way they're supposed to serve you in your body. Because we know, if you've watched my past webinars, how much they can affect if they're out of balance, just that one thing. So also weight, a lot of people, they kind of have it all together in a lot of other areas. Maybe they really, try to eat well and they exercise, but they're still not losing the weight. And sometimes it can really be a matter of, are we getting enough rest at night? Because our body is not allowed to rebuild and do all these things that we'll talk about in a minute. And it really can throw us way off. And lastly, we can't really live full out during the day if we don't get enough rest at night. There's a slide in here that shows kind of what the brain activity is of a well-rested person versus somebody that, doesn't get enough sleep or is woken up a lot during the night. And it's crazy. I mean, no wonder our brain is foggy. We just can't function on anything. So it really does affect our whole life if we don't get the right amount of sleep and the right quality of sleep that we need. So these are the things that happen while we sleep. So we process information. So whatever might have happened during the day, we're able to process that information and retain a lot more of it. You say you're a student and you learn during the day, our brain really processes that at night. And so we're going to be able to recall things better and remember things better. And really our brain is going to be sharper, for when we take tests or just life in general. Even if you're an adult, obviously you learn things through the day. So that can be, that could pertain to you too. You develop memories, remove waste products. So, all these things, it's funny how we don't really think about it, but we're just so busy during the day. Our body is constantly either having to digest food, to, is having an adrenaline rush or there's just so many different things that happen during the day. Our body can't do any of this during the day. And so, if we're not getting adequate sleep and it can't do it at night, these things are going to start really affecting our overall health. Rebuilding metabolism. So this kind of goes back to weight gain. So if we're not rebuilding our metabolism and really helping to maintain a healthy metabolism, then that's really going to show when we are doing all these other things, but yet we're still not losing weight. So that's kind of where that piece comes in. Replacing energy reserves. If our cells can't regenerate and just kind of renew their self, we're going to be way more depleted in the morning. We're still going to feel tired when we wake up, no matter, how much, and for me personally, I didn't mention this at the start, but I've never been one to really have that bad of a sleep habit. I didn't think, prior to essential oils, it's not like that's why I started them. It's because I just could not sleep. Occasionally I, maybe would have trouble, but in general, I felt like I slept pretty well. But really, I would still feel tired in the morning. And it was because, and we'll talk about this in a minute, I wasn't getting into a deep enough sleep. So that really matters too. A lot of people think, oh, I sleep fine. But, are you really getting into that deep, deep sleep where all these things can happen, at a higher rate? So replacing our energy reserves is one of those things that happens. Brain regulates growth and repair. And as adults, this is important for us too, to keep our brain sharp, but it's so important for kids. We know how important, I think sometimes and sleep is more important for them, honestly, but it's very important for us too. And I think that some kids just, we just kind of chalk it up to they're not good sleepers, but honestly, you can make them into the best sleeper that they can be, even though they might not be as good as somebody that you're comparing them to. But every child needs good rest, whether that be maybe just for a shorter amount of time for that child, or maybe you just need to put some of these things in place and really, of course kids aren't going to want to go to bed. So it's important to us as adults that we really enforce that. And because we know how much happens, when they sleep, especially for a child. Emotional processing happens at night while we sleep. And this is something that is interesting. I think next month I'm going to do my webinar on emotions. And it was very interesting what her first name is Laura. I think her last name's Jones. Anyway, she's a very popular person within this realm of his emotions and oils go. But she presented at convention and was just talking about how toxic it can be to our health if we don't process our emotions. And she was more so referring to using natural things to help us process our emotions. But really, a lot of it happens at night. And there was something, I'm sorry, I'm going to refer to my notes. It was saying that people that are tired tend to remember negative things. And it's because you haven't had enough time when you're asleep to process that emotional, whatever might have went on during the day. You're going to hang on to that longer, rather than just processing it and kind of getting it out of the way. You're going to hang on to that, and you're going to be a more negative person is what studies have shown. Now, I don't, I'm just going by that. I don't have any personal experience on that, but it is true. If you kind of don't get a good rest, you kind of just feel tired and cranky. So it kind of makes sense that your emotional processing would happen at night. And then lastly, immune system rebuilding. And I've known, for a while that a lot of our immunity rebuilding and things like that happen at night. And that's why, it really is so important to get that good night's rest, because especially during this time of year, there's just more germs and things floating around, and you just never know. So this is one piece of that puzzle of having a healthy immune system, is getting enough rest. Okay, so these are some of the things that short-term, long-term sleep deprivation can cause. So short-term would be like attention, decreased attention and cognition. So that kind of, these all relate to the things that we just talked about. I just wanted to kind of put them in different categories for you. So you're definitely not as alert if you have short-term insomnia or whatever it might be. You're more impulsive. You don't think about things before you do them. You have memory impairment. So like I said, those things processed at night, the things that you learned. So you're going to have those memory impairments because that processing didn't get a chance to happen. And you're going to fail to process things. So it's just going to be harder for you to kind of, I guess, not be emotional about things and really process them before you kind of act on them. So I can definitely relate to a lot of these, especially like I was saying with young kids. It wasn't that long ago that I had a newborn, and I am not a nice person when I don't get sleep. And I know that obviously you can't help it then, but it's just, I cannot imagine doing that on a long-term basis. I would just feel like I would go crazy. And some of these, I'll in a minute, it kind of talks about how these are not getting enough sleep is kind of connected with mental health issues. They've seen in studies. So that kind of makes sense if you think about it. So long-term sleep deprivation, immune suppression. So like we said, the immune system rebuilds at night, cardiac issues and diabetes. So, all those different things that process in your body, your cells rebuilding, your waste organs are rebuilding and excreting things. If that starts getting backed up, you're going to have these issues. Increased cancer risk. It's been shown in studies that that's, a detriment if you don't get the proper rest at night. And then it's really, this is kind of the last one is psychiatric, because, that, like I was saying, that is kind of linked to different conditions such as these. So anxiety, mood stability, you're going to have to use, increased stimulant and sedative use. Is because if your body is thrown off, of course, you're going to want to try to get it back on the right schedule. And we'll talk more about this in a minute, but you start having to use different things to get it back on schedule, as far as like stimulants during the day and sedatives at night. And you see a lot of that, especially in the pharmacy. I see a lot of that. People will go nutso if they don't have, different things. They're like, I'm not going to go to sleep tonight. And I just want to be like, try something different. But anyway, that's what we're here for. I'm glad you're here to learn something different. But at the bottom, these are the sleep requirements, per the, I don't even know what different body puts these out, but just what they think we should get at night, the different sleep requirements. So adults, 7 to 9 hours, and children, 10 to 12 hours. So, you can just kind of look at that and think, where do I fall in that? How many hours am I getting? Obviously, we just have adults on this call, but 7 to 9 hours is what is ideal. And they say, you know, obviously to get up at the same time and go to bed at the same time, because we'll talk about that in a minute, just goes along with your 24-hour clock that you have. But, you know, that's what you should aim for. So I usually get between 7 and 8 hours. I don't like to get more than that because it kind of makes you feel more tired because your body isn't used to it. This is a slide that I was referring to about the brain when it's been well rested and when it's been sleep deprived. And you can see that's a vast difference. You know, there's only like one speck of red, and that's the activity, you know, when your brain is actually working. So the sleep deprived brain, you know, it just can't function like it should, versus the rested brain. There's a lot of activity going on. So that just kind of shows you the vast difference between those. Okay, so when we're out of sync, our body really runs on a 24-hour clock. And all this makes sense because everything that we do during the day, or a lot of things, I won't say everything, can really make a huge difference when we think about getting a good night's sleep. That's because our body, just, you know, you just think back to, if most of you probably have had kids on this call, just think about how much of a routine you wanted them to be on when they were little. And that's what they really thrive on, is a routine. You know, I don't know where the kind of disconnect is when we get as adults. We need to be on a good routine because, you know, just like their body runs on a 24-hour clock, our body does too. And so when we do, you know, if we have good routines with things, it really allows our body to recognize them more. Like, oh, okay, it's time for bed. You know, she's winding down. She's turned off the TV early. She's, you know, doing her things that maybe relax her more. You know what I'm saying? Your body gets used to that, and it's easier for you to go to sleep. So knowing that, and really to truly understand why we need to be getting a restful night's sleep, we've got to look at a little bit of the biology that happens in our body to explain and understand why certain things happen and therefore have an effect on us the way they do. So there are rhythmic changes that occur in our body as it relates to physiology and behavior. So, you know, our mood, our body temperature, our urine output, blood pressure, alertness, and cortisol production are lower at night and higher during the day. And in contrast, our growth hormone and our melatonin production and our sleep are higher at night. And that's what these type of things keep our body on a 24-hour clock. And then there's something that is referred to as sleep pressure in the brain clock. And that really just means, it's kind of a fancy word for saying that there's a connection between the amount of light our eyes see, and then that kind of regulates it in our brain clock and pushes sleep pressure back. That's why it's great to, you know, get outside as much as you can, because the more light that we see, our body realizes, oh, okay, it's day. I need to be awake now. I need to be alert now. And that's why, you know, we need to shut off more of the lights and turn off the TV at night. So our body realizes that, okay, our eyes aren't seeing as much light. And that's why, you know, our body can kind of get used to these things and really provide us an easier time of going to sleep and waking up in the morning. Okay, so, I mean, a lot of, you know, some of these things you've already heard because they really are true. If you've looked at any of this before, you know that creating a good sleep environment is really key. You know, reducing distractions, a dark room, consistent bedtime and wake times. That's really one of the biggest ones because, like I was saying, our body just gets used to these things. And it eventually, you know, if that's not where you are right now, if you go ahead and start trying to do some of these things, eventually your body will get used to it, and it will be easier to go to bed early and wake up early, or whatever it might be. It'll just be easier for your body to do, you know, wake up and go to bed at the times that you desire, you know, whatever times that might be for you. Don't lay in bed if you're unable to sleep. So, you know, a lot of times I do this. Like if I have a hard time going to sleep one night, I just think, okay, I'm sure I'm going to go to bed in a minute. Like I'll just sit there and just kind of think about different things. And I read it's really not good to do that. It's good to kind of get up and go do something else for maybe 15 or 20 minutes and come back. I guess, you know, it's because it kind of tells your body again, it kind of resets it like, okay, she's up now, it's time to go to bed again. Rather than just sit there and your mind keeps, you know, turning and turning. And really creating a relaxing routine at night. And I'll share mine in a minute. And it's something that I love to do just because it just kind of relaxes me and just kind of gets me, you know, in the right mind space, I guess, just to have a great night's sleep. I think a lot of times too, like if I haven't slept well one night, the night before, and I kind of get anxious. I've heard a lot of people say that they get anxious before they go to bed. It's almost like when you have a newborn and you know they're not going to sleep, obviously, because they're not supposed to at that, that young of an age, and they need to be fed. I used to get anxious at night, like, oh, I'm not going to get any sleep and I'm going to be just ill and tired. And so it's hard not to think that. But I think if we can try to overcome that and think positive thoughts, it would, and try to get into one of these relaxing routines, it really helps make it a whole lot easier for our mind to shut down and our body to relax and go into a good sleep. Okay, so this is still preparing for sleep. Minimize light 30 minutes before bed. Unfortunately, my husband likes to watch TV, so sometimes I can't minimize. I'm not looking at the TV, but it's on. But obviously, I do try to keep the light dim in the bedroom, and sometimes I'll read or do something like that. I try not to be on my phone because they say that type of light is not good for us at night. It keeps us up. I can't recall the type of light it is right now, but I'm sure that you guys know what I'm talking about. So just try to, minimize as much light as you can 30 minutes before bed. Avoid caffeine in the afternoon. For some people, caffeine is a huge trigger. For me, I don't drink caffeine anymore, but when I did used to drink some, it never really had that much of an effect on me. But if it does for you and you know that, I would not drink it in the afternoon. Just try to, or maybe in the early afternoon. I would say probably not after 2 or 3 have any caffeine if it really affects you, in that way. But that's one thing that can really keep people up at night. Keep meals regular. Again, keep on the same thing during the day, and that just helps you, your body to know that it's time for rest at night. And if you eat a large meal, closer to bedtime, your body is still having to digest that. And even though, just say you do, fall to sleep, your body is still going to have to be digesting that, and it's not going to get to the things that really needs to get done when you're sleeping. So it's still not a good idea, even if it doesn't per se keep you up. It's not a good idea to eat, before you go to bed or close to when you go to bed. Okay, so if you exercise, it's preferably to do it in the morning, but definitely not within 3 to 4 hours of bedtime. And I cannot exercise at night because it does keep me up. Exercise is really a great way to wake you up in the morning and kind of get those endorphins going and get you, in a great mood in the morning and just have a great day. So I know a lot of people, they like to exercise at night, and if it works for you, that's fine. But just think about this if you have trouble sleeping, and because it can really affect you. Avoid stress before sleep. So sometimes, we start, it's a great time to maybe talk to your spouse or something like that before you go to sleep. And I mean, I like to do that too, but sometimes we'll get to talking about a certain situation and it's kind of like, stressful or something. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to talk about this right now because I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. And it's true. It really does. Like your mind will just kind of, keep turning and thinking about that. So if you can try to avoid any kind of stress before sleep, that's the best. And avoid napping. I'm not a big napper at all. I don't like, even when I needed to nap because I had a newborn, I still really can't nap that well. But if you love to nap, try to keep it to around 20 minutes because it really does push that, what we call sleep pressure back. And it just delays bedtime pretty much because your body is kind of confused then because you went to sleep and then you woke up. So it kind of interrupts that 24-hour clock that we're on. Okay, so I always like to look at the overall picture. I don't think that there's one thing that you can say, okay, if you do this, you're going to be ensured a great night's sleep. I think it's really looking at the bigger picture. So obviously exercise can be really helpful because especially if you do it in the morning, because obviously you're exerting more energy and you're going to be happier during the day and you're going to have more energy. And then at night, you're going to be more tired. So it kind of makes sense to exercise. Stress reduction and management. So this is a big one because if we're so tense during the day and we're just, always kind of hyperactive, our nervous system is always hyperactive. And we don't find time to wind down and we don't do some of these things to create a great sleep environment at night, that's really going to carry over and we're still going to be tense and not get a great night's sleep. Good sleep hygiene that we just spoke about, just basically having a good routine in place is very key. And then I'm about to talk about some natural support that we can use rather than, always going to stimulants during the day and sedatives at night. It's just not a good pattern to get in, honestly. Your body is going to become dependent on that. And, it's just really toying with your body rather than letting your body do what it naturally wants to do. Okay, so here are some ways to naturally support better sleep. So magnesium, and sorry about that. I was going to type out naturally calm, and I guess I just left. Wait, hold on. Naturally, no. Okay, so it should say naturally calm magnesium supplement, excuse me. And what this is a powdered magnesium supplement that you can just put in some water and drink. I like to make a little tea out of it. So all that means really is that you heat the water rather than keep it cold. But just something warm at night is a little bit more calming to me. But I love to make this at night because it's part of my bedtime routine, and it is calming for me. But really what magnesium does is it keeps cortisol levels at bay, and therefore that helps you to relax more, and it helps you to sleep better. Magnesium has a ton of different benefits for us because a lot of us are depleted in magnesium. So we really need to have some type of supplement, and that can definitely help us sleep better. And there's lots of other things that it can improve as well. So and two, I wanted to mention, a lot of you might see the magnesium tablets in the pharmacy or, over the counter or wherever. And those, they work to some degree, but our body doesn't break those down and use them as well as it does something like a powdered version. And also, obviously, I put Epsom salt bath. That has magnesium in it too. And that is a more absorbable form because it gets into your skin. And so some people will make, they'll take magnesium flakes, which is not the same as salt, but you can buy them in the flakes. And they'll make like a body lotion or something like that. And it really is absorbed well on the skin. So either in a powdered form that you can take by mouth or on your skin and get it absorbed that way. Those are the best ways to get the magnesium. Natural sleep supplement, which we'll talk about in a minute, that doTERRA just came out with, and then essential oils topically and aromatically. So those are, two kind of different ways that you can use them at bedtime. So let's talk about the natural sleep supplement. This is brand new. They just announced this at convention, which was a couple weeks ago, and everybody is super excited about this. It'll be available tomorrow for purchase in case you guys were wondering about that. All the new products come out tomorrow. So a little bit more about this. And I really think this is genius. I never really thought about this, but when we use essential oils, right now, I guess you could, but I don't personally. I usually use them topically and aromatically. So once you add an internal piece to that, it really is like the trifecta of perfect sleep or great sleep for me anyway. And most people that have tried this have absolutely loved it. It just kind of takes it to another level. If you've tried different things and already use essential oils, some of you already do, some not, but it just kind of takes it to another level. That's what I've kind of seen when I've taken it. So let's discuss a little bit about what's in this. So it's a soft gel that you take. You see down here I have the recommended amount is take 2 soft gels 30 minutes before bed. And just to let you guys know, I have taken 1 before, but it didn't do me as well as taking 2. So I would recommend taking both of them. And I don't take these every night. I just wanted to, say that, sometimes, for whatever reason, I'll just take some if I really want to ensure that I get a good night's sleep, because most of the time I do, honestly, just using the essential oils diffused and topically. But, when I kind of just want to ensure that I do, I take 2 of these and I sleep like a rock, So what is inside these soft gels is lavender essential oil. And also they have included 4 calming herbs. So L-theanine is the first of the herbs. And this is similar to, if you guys, may or may not have heard of this, the GABA neurotransmitter. And what it does is it affects the neurons in your brain. And then it contributes to motor control, vision, and a lot of other cortical functions. And so when you kind of think about controlling those and really calming those, you can kind of see how it almost just helps your nervous system sort of calm down. And it really does a lot of times shut down at night because of all these other processes that are going on in your body. So this kind of just aids that in shutting down more. And it also regulates anxiety. So if you have, like I said, you or maybe get anxious before you sleep, or you're just, your mind is just going 90 to nothing or something, it's just, this will help you kind of calm that. Lemon balm, this is similar to Melissa, the plant Melissa that we get the oil from. This is a non-aromatic version of that. It's an herbal version, and it's one of those that helps you relax too. That they've, a lot of these, it's been studied to help relax, so that's kind of why they use these. Passion flower, it's again traditionally used as a calming herb. And then chamomile, we all know that, we have chamomile tea and different things like that. This is a soothing herb as well. So that's kind of why they included those. So that is a natural sleep supplement. Okay, so moving on to essential oils diffused. So a lot of times when people want to, up until now, obviously when we didn't have the sleep supplement that you could take internally, a lot of times people would just use essential oils topically. But I always like to recommend, especially if they come back and they're like, that didn't really work for me, I'm still waking up at night, I don't know what to do, whatever, what do you recommend? And I'll either, most of the time I'll say, let's try some other ones topically, but why don't you need to try them diffused, because it can really, it just kind of hits your brain in a different spot, because as we know, a lot of us know that when we inhale essential oils, aromatically, that it affects our hypothalamus. And that really is what controls the timing of our sleep. So that kind of, can help you understand why it would be important to not only apply topically, but also diffuse essential oils. And that will aid in helping your body know that it's time to go to sleep. So I wanted to include some of my favorite diffuser blends for night. I like to use wild orange and peace together. Lavender and breathe are two good ones. Those are, I really recommend those to a lot of people at first, because a lot of people that buy the starter kits, they have those two in there and they can go ahead and start using them rather than, some of these other ones that aren't included. So that is a wonderful blend to diffuse at night. Vetiver and cardamom is another good blend that, you might not necessarily think of. I think I saw somebody post something about it one time, and I started using it, and it was great. It smells great too. And then lastly, Console, which is part of the emotional aromatherapy line, and then cedarwood. So these are just some kind of different ones. I wanted to include some different ones that you might not have thought of before. I basically have probably 10 different oils sitting on my bedside table, and I just kind of pick ones just depending on what my mood is. So I've never picked a bad one, really. I mean, there's so many benefits to the oils, which is, a lot of the reason why a lot of people are drawn to them, because you can use them for so many different things. So, some oils that you would not think of to use to help calm and get a good night's sleep are actually really good for that. And I did want to mention that some people are very nervous. They're like, they're so excited that they're getting a good night's sleep. They're like, is this ever not going to work for me? And, obviously we can't, guarantee anything, but I like to tell people, your body isn't really necessarily going to get immune to this, like it has to have it to go to sleep. But, just like we eat different foods, our body needs different, they get different benefits from different oils that we use. So I like to personally change mine up, every week or two, at least every month for sure. And just use something different, because your body's going to respond to it better, and you're going to get a better night's sleep from it, usually, is what I've noted in the past. So I did want to mention that. Okay, so using essential oils topically. I included a reflexology map of the foot, because you can see how many different things can be affected when we apply essential oils to our feet. So I always like to tell people, whatever essential oil that you might choose that night, just try to cover your entire foot, because that way you get all of the sensory points. There are some that, are the brain and the head and things that you might want to, like, I want to shut down my thoughts or whatnot, to go to bed quicker. But if you cover the entire foot, you're going to be covered. So I did want to mention that. I usually like to tell people to apply 5 to 10 minutes before bedtime is a good amount of time to just let them have time to work and get throughout your entire body. So some of my favorite sleep oils, I like the Serenity blend, and they actually just redid this one, reformulated it. It now has vetiver, cedarwood, and hoe wood is another one they added to it. So a lot of the times I like to add cedarwood and vetiver to Serenity, to kind of just, do something different, because vetiver is a great sleep oil, as is cedarwood. So now you have them all in one. So that's the new, and it's now called Restful Blend instead of Calming Blend. So they just changed the name a little bit. Then there's also vetiver on its own or added to something else. Cedarwood, clary sage is another great one for sleep that a lot of people don't think about. It's great for your hormonal balance as well, but it helps you get a great night's sleep. It's very grounding. And then lavender by itself is also great. Okay, so that's all of the information that I have, but I did want to mention, in case you guys haven't seen, I'm doing a natural sleep study with my friend Jasmine, and still looking for people that might want to participate in this. If you just message me, I'll send you what the requirements are and what kind of we'll be doing in the sleep study, just to see if you are interested in something like that. I'm excited about this because it is such a great topic and something that will benefit so many different people. So I'm excited to just, really focus on that for 2 solid weeks for these participants, and just hopefully get them in a good routine and get them some good natural solutions to try as far as sleep. So if you know anybody, even if you sleep great, but you know somebody that doesn't, you can definitely refer them to us, and we'll see if they fit the bill to be in the study. So I wanted to mention that. And thank you for joining me. Again, I love doing different topics just because, we just get to learn more about our bodies. We get to learn more about the natural solutions that we can use to just work with our body and help it to perform the best that it can. So thank you for joining. And if you need to get in touch with me, I put my email and phone number on there. Feel free to text or email me. And I did want to include this quote because I just liked it. I did then what I knew how to do, but now that I know better, I do better. So I think it's so true, because once we kind of, now that you might see what a detriment it can be if we don't get, a deep enough sleep, or if we get interrupted sleep to our overall health, it might be something that you might want to pay more attention to. So hopefully you learned some new things tonight, some new things about your body that you didn't know, and maybe some new things to try that you can, hopefully just aid your body in relaxing and getting that great night's sleep. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If you guys have any questions or comments, I'll stay on for a few minutes. Thank you. Yes, so go out there and get the new sleep supplement tomorrow. That's definitely going to be, especially for you guys that have already used oils topically, or maybe diffuse them or whatnot, this is going to be something that you definitely want to try if you still aren't where you want to be in the sleep realm. Okay, guys, if you don't have any questions or comments, thank you for joining. And if there's anybody that missed it, I know a lot of people, are busy at night, they can't get on. I'll definitely post the recording, so just let them know that will be posted. I'll see you guys later. Night.